Hi guys, it's Susa and welcome back to another video. Today we're gonna do November wrap-up. This month I had the time and good fortune to read 10 books. We have 2 with 5 stars and a lot with 4 stars. So make sure to remain up until the end and discover new books that you might love. Here on the channel I do book recommendations and reviews. I publish bookish content every Thursday and Sunday for you to enjoy. If you want to stay tuned, click the description button. If you end up liking this video, give it a thumbs up. Let's start with the first book that I actually ended up reading at the end of October, so this is kind of an extra, and that was Horrorstör. For me, this was the worst book of the month, and I am so sad to say that. What's the story about? It mainly is a story about an IKEA-like store in which suddenly weird things start to happen, and so some of the workers decide to remain that night and discover what happens. And so in this book we just follow these characters throughout one night and just we see how the things evolve from there. And I actually started loving the book. I was super into it, but then right like up to the middle I started to be a little bit confused, and then I just lost it. I wasn't really interested in what happened. I pushed because I hate to DNF books and I wanted to know what happened, but it just fell flat for me. And then moving to the books that I probably read in November, the first one is A Shadow in the Ember by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This book for me was a 4.5 stars. I really enjoy it. She is the writer of the From Blood and Ash series, and this book is actually a prequel. And this prequel reads very similar to the series, especially to the first book. It has the same kind of structure in terms of how the story is narrated, and this story talks about a girl, Sarah, that is betrothed to this god of death called Nyctos, and she has this plan of going into this god and kind of seduce him and kill him because there's some sort of rot that is consuming their land, and she thinks, and all of her family thinks, that if she's able to kill this god then the rot will stop. And so she has this purpose. But when she is to be retrieved by this god, by Nyctos, he doesn't take her, and so it's a bit like what? And then the story goes from there. They meet again. The setting was fantastic. I really enjoy it, and the characters seem a little bit more mature, and I actually enjoyed more Sarah and Nyctos than Poppy and Hawk. Then continuing with another 4 release for another very good loved author, we have Defy the Night by Brigid Kemmerer. I rated this book with 4 stars, and the story is as follows. We have this kingdom where a terrible sickness has followed upon the people, and in this world the only way of getting cured of this sickness, of these fevers, is by drinking kind of a potion that it's made of a very scarce flower. And of course, as this flower is scarce, it is really rationated. This is creating huge differences between the people, and it's obviously, boiling a little bit the situation. And we have a main girl, Tessa, that is kind of a Robin Hood figure. She is stealing this flower from the rich, and she, as an apothecary, is doing this potion and she is distributing it to the people that don't have resources to buy it. And then we follow the point of view of Prince Korik, and he is the second hand to the king, his brother. They are young, their parents were murdered, and they don't really know who they should be trusting within their court, and there's not much that they can do to actually help people. One day, Tessa goes to the palace trying to take a little bit of revenge, and in doing so she is discovered, and the story unfolds from there. Why this book wasn't a 5 stars for me? Mainly because of Tessa. She did stuff, but a lot of the stuff that she has done in the past, right? We know that she has been good to the people, but we are not there to see it, so we kind of need to believe that. Also, something happened at, let's say, mark 100 pages that changed a little bit the story. It was a plot twist that I wasn't expecting, and although I liked it, I fall again. Like, I wasn't really, you know, sold. I feel that if I were to have more time to know the story, the environment, and the characters, I would be more invested and I would be more into what is happening. It ended and I was like, that's fine. That's fine. Will I continue with the series? Yes, I will. Then maybe the book that I read this month that felt a little bit more flat for me was the Other Merlin. This is supposed to be an inspired story based on the Arthurian mythology, but it's taking place actually when they are young. So we start the story when Arthur is taking the sword from the rock and when things change, and we also see how Merlin is supposed to go to the court to assist Arthur. But what happens? It seems that Merlin had two children and both of them have magic, but it seems that it's the girl Ember that is more powerful, and so when her brother cannot go to the court because obviously women cannot do witchcraft, then she goes impersonating her brother. She starts to learn magic and the story kind of unfolds from there, and that was fine. I actually was really hooked to the story. All of the first part, what happened were my expectations. I was expecting something to happen and it didn't. Like the adventure of the story or the stakes of the story were very low for me, kind of a 3 stars. And then starting with the first of my 5-star reads, I had Dark Rise.
Oof, this book.
I heard very good things about this book. This is also YA, although it kind of leans a bit more adult, I'd say, for the topics that it treats and how the characters face situations. It really deserves all the hype that it has. It talks about our main character, Will, whose mom died, and he, from that point onwards, it's been in hiding. He suddenly is involved in this war between light and darkness, but he starts to discover that he is kind of different, that he has a little bit of power, or he's able to do some stuff that other people can't, and that everyone is chasing him. So he goes and finds solace in this group of people called the Stewards. They are the only ones alive that remember that some time ago there was also a fight between dark and light, and that dark was very, 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 very close to win, and that the world shattered due to that. And it seems that that happened so long ago, no one remember anymore that that happened, but the darkness is rising again, and he might be the only one in charge of saving humanity. The story unfolds from here. It has a very interesting start. Then the middle of the book falls a little bit more on just, you know, like meh. It was fine, but the pace of the book, it was a little bit more slow. We invest a little bit more time on knowing the characters, which, as I'm a very character driven reader, it was alright because it allowed me to see the nuances of each of the character, but it wasn't really, you know, happening a lot. But then the last 80-100 pages were just mind-blowing. I really think that you might love this book if you like characters that are complex, you like this trope of darkness and light. It's inspired also in London in the 1920s. If you like a story that isn't yet concluded but that will 100% steal your mind for a lot, I really, really recommend.
And then, oof.
I finished the Shadow of the Fox series. I was supposed to read the second book, Soul of the Sword, just this month, but I was so hooked with the story and with the characters, and the story overall was bringing me so much joy that I wasn't able to stop it, and I continued and I finished the series, and now I don't know how to move forward. I gave these books both 4.5 stars. Maybe the third one I liked a little bit less, and this story is set in a Japanese setting and it highlights a lot of Japanese folklore. So we will have different monsters, different gods, and all of that is within a story that is mainly a quest in which we follow our main character Yumeko, who is a kitsune. So she is half woman, half fox. She has a little bit of magic, and she has this mission on taking a scroll or pieces of some scroll and take it into some temple, because if these different pieces of the scroll blend together, then a dragon will arise, and this dragon will grant one wish, and this wish is able to change completely the world. And it's actually what is going to happen.
Only bad people want this wish.
Her mission is very important, and in that mission she knows different characters. The main one is Tatsumi, which is this samurai that has a little bit of a plan, because he is working for one of the clans, a shadow clan, and they want the scroll from themselves. So Yumeko is a little bit tricking Tatsumi, and she is making him accompany her to the temple to retrieve the scroll, although she has it. And along the way they meet a lot of different people, and really this story is so heartwarming. The first book is a quest, the second book is also a quest, and the third book it's mainly a fight. I wasn't expecting these to be as emotional as it was. It's easy to read, it's reasonably short, it will steal your heart. Then we go to a series that I was surprisingly very excited about, and that is Kingdom of the Wicked. The first one, Kingdom of the Wicked, and the second book, Kingdom of the Curse. I gave these two books a 4.5. Tells the story of a main girl that has a twin, and her twin dies. She is murdered. And so our main girl, Emilia, is enraged, and she wants to figure out what happened, because it seems that there are more witches that are being murdered. And so it might be that it's just not her sister, but there's more people. And so in doing her researches, she decides to call on a demon to help her knowing who killed her sister. And while doing so, she kind of summons this prince of hell called Wrath. And they, start kind of investigating together, although she doesn't really know the motivations or what is actually doing with Wrath, and he is a very enigmatic figure, and the story kind of unfolds from there. A warning though, the first book is YA and the second book is new adult, so it's a little bit more spicy, a little bit more sexy, and a little bit more explicit. I will actually do an in-depth review of this series, but I will say, if you have the opportunity to give the audiobook a try, please do. The narrator is outstanding. She does a phenomenal work. I think you really enjoy this book if you like something that goes fast, that has a little bit of romance, and mainly the story puts up front witches against demons. And then for the first of my adult fantasy books, I read Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, which was also at 5 stars. This book, it's a standalone. It's a very good idea if you want to get into Brandon, because it is involved in the Cosmere. You don't really need to have a lot of backstory to get into this book, and it tells the story mainly of two sisters. We have this king that is in this kingdom that is actually at war with other kingdom, way more powerful, and so the way of this king to stop war is to betroth one of his daughters to the god king of this kingdom. And when the time comes, the king decides suddenly that the daughter will die if she goes to this god king, so he decides to just give away the daughter that he don't love as much, and he decides to take the younger sister and give it to this kingdom. And so she gets there, she has no idea, and she needs to navigate this world where there's a very complex layer of political intrigues, of gods. We'll get there in a minute, but she is unprepared and naive. And then the older sister is left without purpose, really. She was like,
What? But wasn't I supposed to marry this dude?
She was. So she decides to go also to this kingdom and save her sister for certain death. And while doing so, also trying to stop this war. The most fascinating part of this book, which is how the magic works and how that is structured within the layers of political intrigue. And so in this world, magic works through breaths. Everyone has a breath, and it seems that you can give these breaths away, and you can also accumulate breaths, but you can also die if you give all of the breaths that you have accumulated. And in this court, the ones with more breaths are the gods, because in this realm, the gods that are adored is people that has actually come back. So it seems that if you died and at the moment of your death you did something heroic, something that was really deserving, you get to come back. And as you're dying, all the breath comes to you again, and you arise as someone very powerful with more breath. The main god that we follow, it's just so thrilling. It's Lightsong, and he don't believe that he himself is a god, which is hilarious, and he is so smart that he is actually trying to convince the people that adore him that he is not a god. We also have a sentient sword that encourages people to stop evil. So what else can you look for? And last but not least, the second adult fantasy book that I read this month is Winds of Strife, a self-published book by Gutman. Is the first book in a series called The Dawnless Night, and the story is just so thrilling. I rated this with 4.5 stars. I also have a review which I will link, and this story mainly talks about a world where the nights are getting longer and longer and longer, and it seems that the king has decided that it was all due to a witch, and therefore witches need to be killed, all of them. And in order to do so, he's creating this kind of army called the Harbingers, which are the ones in charge of hunting down witches. These Harbingers have a magic. Some people can harness emotions. You can harness calm, and while doing so, you won't be harmed. You will have this kind of shield in your battle, but you won't be able to attack to anyone. Or you can harness hatred and, you know, like consume with fire everything. But what happens if you do so? You will also lose part of yourself. This story has different characters. The main point of view that we follow is of Nai, who is a very grey character that I understand not everybody will like. I fall in the category of people that did. I don't share the decisions that he made because he is one of these harbingers and he is powerful. He acknowledges he needs to hunt down witches because tonight it's happening, but he also saves some of them and he works with them to take down the king. For me, it's a very strong review of the author, and I really recommend you to give it a try. And that was it for this video. I really hope you liked it. If you want to see more videos like this one, subscribe to the channel, and please let me know down below what are the books that you read this November. Did you have a great reading month? I really hope you did, and I really hope to see you real soon in another video. Bye!